Hi, everyone. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Diane Whiddon, and here we're going to talk about web design, online marketing, and today, how to build a successful web design business. This week's guest is Christy Price. She has been working in web design for over 20 years, and she a few years ago, switched to working solely to Squarespace in 2018. She's a certified Squarespace expert and authorized trainer. And not only does she build gorgeous, effective websites and templates, she's also building a mountain of resources for web designers. So to start us off, Christy, the big question, why did you switch from WordPress to Squarespace?
That's a great question. So I was doing website design for a long time, working for different companies in Austin. And when I went out on my own to freelance, I did WordPress because that's what I was used to. And I worked in it for several years. And after a while, I got really tired of cleaning up hacked websites because the SQL database would get all these links added by bad actors. And if people weren't updating their plugins every month, that just happened. It was part of it. I was sick of that. And then I realized that my clients really hated WordPress to the extent that they wouldn't go in and make any edits themselves. And so I was doing the tiniest little edits for them, like updating the copyright and little things like that. And I had no joy doing that. Nobody really wants to do that. They didn't want to pay me to do that. So I started looking around and thinking about what is a great platform that I could use, that I could hand off a website to a client and they could manage the basics themselves. If they still needed help with something bigger, strategy, adding a new service, sure, I could jump in and help with that. But these little tiny tasks, the 5-minute here, 5-minute there, that would just take up a whole day, they can handle those on their own.
Right, exactly. And for all those little tiny tasks, and I so feel your pain, there is no joy in me adding a hyperlink to your text or like these little tiny things that they're like, I just can't handle that back-end interface. Please do this.
Yes.
We are charging an arm and a leg to do them because that's what our time is worth. And it's not a great solution for most businesses. Some people need it. But when you look at the ease of Squarespace, it's a totally different thing.
And Squarespace was a match for the type of clients that I liked working with. So I really love small businesses or solopreneurs who, have an idea of something, a service they want to offer. And those folks are the ones that I really love making that vision come to life for. And with WordPress, it just, it never felt aligned. And with Squarespace, it was really easy to show them how their site would work. It felt comfortable for them to go in and make changes. And it really aligned for those types of websites because they're more informational. They didn't need things like tons of logins or forums or recipes. Like there are some businesses that are better suited for other platforms, but for my clients, Squarespace was a clear winner when I was going through and trying out all the builders out there.
Awesome. Great. Okay. So it's established we both love Squarespace. It's so awesome and wonderful. And we're so glad we're building websites in Squarespace. So now let's talk about building a web design business and how to make that successful and how to do that really well, because you have got some insight into this. You're really, I think, killing it in this space. And you've got some really good foundational ideas to help web designers with this. So talk a little bit about what's most important and the kind of things that you recommend for web designers to build a strong foundation for their business.
Yeah. So I think the first thing is choose your lane. And for me, in 2018, that lane became Squarespace. It wasn't specifically, I didn't niche down to like, I just work with architects, but it really was small businesses on Squarespace. So I think choosing your niche and then really diving deep and becoming an expert in it, because I think there is a tendency, at least for me, I get this, shiny object syndrome, and I'm like, oh, let me go check out Framer and let me go check out Webflow. And I could spend my time playing around with all the different platforms out there. But at the end of the day, to be able to build a good website quickly in Squarespace, that requires some knowledge and some practice. So my number one tip is become an expert in what you're offering. and dive deep in it. And that way it's easier for you. You're charging the same for a project that you would spend 10 hours on because you know exactly what you're doing, or a project that you spend 40 hours on because you're learning as you go. And of course, early on, you're going to be learning as you go. But after a while, you're going to develop processes and systems. You know the platform inside out. One of my favorite feedbacks is when I'm doing live changes with clients and they're like, "You're so fast." And it's like, yeah, I do this all day.
That's awesome. I think that's such good advice. I hear a lot of people talking about how easy Squarespace is to use, and that's
Mhm,
true, it is.
mhm,
But I don't think that that's a substitute for glossing over the depth of
mhm,
experience and mastery that you can get inside just that platform. Yes, it's easy to use and it's simple to use, but there's
mhm.
a lot to learn if you want to get amazing at it.
Yeah, there's a lot to learn. And I know like starting out, I was used to how things worked in WordPress. So, the idea of like, where does the social sharing logo go? And how do you set up a 404 page and things like that? That was pretty time consuming in the beginning. And now it's like, 2 seconds and you're done. But I think diving into your platform, becoming an expert, and really knowing what you can offer as well. So you're promising your client something that you can deliver.
Yeah, I love that.
Mhm.
I'm so glad you said that. I don't think that can be said enough. Okay, and so really quick on niche. So
Mhm.
you think that just Squarespace is niche enough? Sam Crawford said that too when I interviewed him a couple weeks ago. So you
Yeah,
echo that same idea.
I do. And I probably niche a little more than Sam. I know Sam is just doing tons and tons of projects. I don't think I work as much as Sam after hearing him talk. So I don't do as many projects as Sam. So I am able to niche a little, maybe a little smaller. So really small businesses, like I said. Right now I'm actually doing a custom build for a tax and law firm. They have about 20 employees, but I'm really only working with two to do the website. So that still feels aligned. But, I don't do, for example, I used to work on nonprofit websites quite a bit when I was starting out because I was just looking for work. And those were the people that had low budgets and who would take a chance on somebody who wasn't that experienced. But after doing lots of nonprofit websites, I realized that there's not one or two decision makers, there's 20 and they all have opinions. And the timelines for those just get so crazy and long that I'm like, no more nonprofit websites for me. And unless it's like, I'll do a pro bono website and I'll be like, I'm going to give you what you get. And here's your website. But, I think that for me, I niche in terms of my process. So I look for clients that will fit my process.
Ooh, say more about that.
Yeah. So the way I run my projects is time limited. So I block off my calendar for a custom build, and it might be 2 weeks for a smaller project. It might be 6 weeks for a bigger project. But I have within that timeline, I know exactly when I'm building out certain things. And I know that for 2 week projects, one decision maker is all that time frame can handle. For a 6 week project, I can have two. If I had more than that, it would not fit on my calendar. Basically, those tend to drag on. So I'm looking for projects that fit my timelines that I have. So at the end of this year, I go through and I look at my calendar for next year and I kind of block out when I think those builds will happen. So smaller build here, larger build here. And I can tweak that, as I get inquiries. But I'm looking for people that like my process. And my process is not super duper collaborative. So I take initial website inspiration from the client. I talk with them about their goals. We come up with a strategy together. And I talk through basically what the website structure will be and give them ideas of what it will look like. And once they're on board with that, I start building. And then we have a homepage walkthrough call, and that's where I make sure I'm on the right page in terms of design and content. If I've created any kind of additional content than they've provided, I want to make sure that's nailed down. And once they're happy with the look and the feel of the website, the way it works on the homepage, I go and I build out the rest of the pages. And we don't have another call until those pages are done and we do a full walkthrough together. So I'm sending them links along the way so they can review it. But on that next call, we actually go through the website, every page, and I make live changes to the website. So we go through their list of changes and I just knock them out. And then we have a launch call for any final tweaks, make those changes, and the site goes live. So there's not a ton of back and forth. And they know I have a revision stock so they can have all their notes there. You know, every now and then there is going to be something bigger that happens along the way. With this site that I'm currently working on, they changed a couple of their services. They're like, well, while we're doing this, we're going to change what we initially talked about. And so, it's like I can do that within this timeline. I've given myself buffer. But if it were a 2-week website, it would be like, oh, that's outside of the scope of what we agreed on. So, you price accordingly to the number of decision makers, the size of the site. You give yourself a little extra room. I know for me, I have a couple of autoimmune things going on. And so I may not have a great day once in a while. And so I give myself buffer time. So those 2-week builds, those are websites I could probably build in 2 days if I had to, but I give myself 2 weeks. And that also makes the price point feel better for the client.
Yes, absolutely.
If I'm like a 2-day website is $6,000, they're going to be like, oh no.
Right. You're not doing enough magic in 2 days. What do you mean? Yeah, but the 2 weeks makes it look like, for sure. Yeah. Okay, so I have so many questions on this, and I don't want to dive in too deep because I really want to talk to you about products and like strategy building in your site. But I want to drill down into this because you have said a couple things that are fascinating to me. So, okay, so first thing, when you're doing the 2-week or 6-week or 4-week or whatever it is, it's just one client at a time, right? That you're working on.
Yeah.
Will you do other small things? Will you throw a VIP day in there or any other little? Okay. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm still doing discovery calls. I might have one VIP day. Those are less likely in the 2-week builds, more likely in the 6-week builds. I'll definitely have a couple of hour calls each week with someone. So they are my only custom build client during that time, but I am doing other work and I'm of course doing work for my own business.
Right. Of course. Yeah. Okay. So the build process is fairly similar to mine in the way I get all the information from the client and then I go away in my cave and I build, and you do the homepage. I'm assuming, again, perks to Squarespace because things you cannot do in WordPress. The homepage is like a substitute for a wireframe in the WordPress world, right? Like the brand board and wireframe and stuff. We just build the homepage because it's easy.
Okay. Yeah, and I know a lot of designers, especially those that operate at higher price points, they'll do a beautiful design in Figma and present that to their client and then build it in Squarespace. And I have a slightly different take on that. One, I don't love Figma. For me, it feels like a waste of time because I don't do websites with a ton of custom code. So I can just spin it up in Squarespace and then make any adjustments there faster than I personally could build it in Figma. And so I kind of skipped that step.
Yeah, I agree. Same thing. And then the client really gets to see, like you said, color scheme, font, all those things. They also get to see the messaging because the homepage is so indicative of what the rest of the feel and content of the rest of the site is going to be. So that's good. And then, girl, you get on a call with the client and do changes in real time.
I do. Yeah. I didn't do that when I started. But at this point in my business, I want them to see a couple things. One, I want them to see what it's like to use Squarespace. And when they watch me do it, they're learning a little bit. And so and I'm going fast, right? Because it's a fast call, but I record it and they have access to the recordings. So they can always go back and look at what we did together. Now, I also do smaller recordings when I'm adding a blog post or changing text or updating an image. So they have those little library tutorials for their website, but they can also go back and look at the recording of the call. And so I want them to feel like, wow, she's really fast, but this is something I could do myself. I see the steps. It looks doable. So that's part one. Part two is when I'm even on the homepage call, if they're like, well, what about this? And I can just show them really quickly, like I thought about that and here's why it doesn't work. And they can see that really quickly. They lean into the fact that I'm the expert. Like, I've got this. I can do it really quickly. I understand what I'm doing. There are reasons behind why things look and work the way they do. And so I think that's part of it too, is just like they see you as an expert.
Oh, fantastic. Yes, totally. Oh, so many. That's one of those things I've been allergic to. I'm like, I would not get on the phone. And in WordPress, it's not even feasible, right? I
No,
mean,
no,
that's not something you could do.
no.
But okay, I'll consider that. If I give that a try, I will report back and let you
It's
know.
Yeah, I actually think it's really fun. That is like the tiny bit of collaboration does come in that homepage walkthrough,
Uh-huh.
and then the edits are it's really interesting because sometimes they'll throw a wrench in at the ninth hour, on the edits call and be like, "Well, what if we move the logo to the right side of the page?" And of course, I'm like, "Well, have you seen any websites with the logo on the right?" We didn't see that in any of your inspiration websites, but I'd be happy to take a look. And then you can show them, like, in Squarespace, here are our options. Like, these are the layout options. We don't have that as an option. I can certainly reach out to a developer. I don't have that code on hand. This is about how much that would cost. This is about how much time it would add to the project. And they're like, oh, maybe I don't actually want the logo on the right. It's
Right?
just, yeah. So,
That's amazing. So for everyone listening, Christy just gave you a whole bunch of really stellar scripts right there, exactly what you say to clients when they ask for something bizarre. So have you seen any other
mhm,
clients where that's happened? And
yeah.
well, I don't have that code on hand, but I could.
Mhm.
I mean, right there, that was amazing.
Yeah, a lot of times I think the clients aren't they've done the work ahead of time and then they kind of forget about it while you're doing the initial build, right? So maybe they got you the content, the inspirations, maybe the strategy call was 2 months ago. They've forgotten what inspiration sites they put down.
Right.
And so I think calling that out and being like, so just let's pull up those inspiration sites again that you provided. And so this is why we did this, this is why we did that, and it keeps things on track. So like I think when they see there's a logic behind it and there's a strategy, they're like, "Oh, okay, I get it. You had a reason for this." It's
Right.
not just like we can't willy-nilly move things wherever we want.
Right.
There's a reason. And so I think that's really helpful.
Awesome. I love it. Fantastic.
Mhm.
All right. So I want to transition into talking
Yeah.
about products and stuff, but before we do it, let's check the chat really quickly and just see
Mhm.
if there are any questions. Hi everyone. Thank you so much for being
Hi.
here. Yeah, and Caitlin says, yeah, wireframing always felt redundant
Oh,
when you're working on
Caitlin.
for sure.
Yes. Yes.
And Caitlin does some
Yeah.
live digital too sometimes. Another
Diane, are we
thing.
gonna convert you?
I don't know, man. I'm gonna have to do some deep work to see if I can swing that, but I'll let you guys know. And she agrees with you. It's always helpful for them to see.
Mhm.
Yeah, definitely some added benefits there. Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Thanks, Caitlin.
Awesome. Okay, so now let's move into actually structuring your business. So that's a lot of good stuff on like,
Hey,
what to
Christy.
focus on and how to niche and things like that. But then talk to me a little bit because you have like three arms that you talk about in your business.
Yeah. Yeah. So I do one-on-one client work, but I also have kind of two other buckets of income. So I kind of think of them as buckets. So part of my energy and my income comes from this client work bucket. That's something that we just talked about with custom design, but it also includes, any kind of maintenance I do for a client, which I don't do as much now that I'm doing Squarespace instead of WordPress, hourly screen share help calls, VIP days, things like that. So that's all one-on-one work. Now, I also have two other pretty robust income streams, and one of those is affiliate marketing. And I started blogging after I moved my business to Squarespace. One of the things I recognized was I was spending a lot of time trying to figure things out initially, and this was back in 2018. And a lot of it was just, really deep work, figuring things out, maybe going into Squarespace help and chat with somebody at Squarespace, and they would give you a workaround. And you're like, well, people should know about this. And so I would write a blog post. And I started getting traffic to my site for those blog posts. And at some point, I thought, there are a lot of plugins that I use. There's a certain tech stack that I use. There are contracts that I use. I bet other people, other service providers, not just web designers, would be interested in that. And so I started writing about that as well. I include a toolbox page on my website. And so I started getting some money from affiliate marketing when I talk about tools that I use myself and love and why they work for me. I feel like it feels really aligned and people are happy to use your link to purchase that because they learned something from you that might help their business. So second bucket is affiliate marketing. And the third bucket that came a little bit later is digital products. And so it started with my first digital product is actually free now. It's my image optimization mini course. So that was like a very low price offer initially, and now it's free. But when I started that, it was like just dipping my toe in the waters. Like I didn't want to do a video course. It's all just text based, but I wanted to see if people were interested, and they were. So that led me to create a couple of other digital products that don't exist anymore because the platform has changed so much that they needed to be updated. But then I rolled out Make Money with Your Blog. So I talked about how I used my blog for affiliate marketing, but it also brought clients my way. And I talk about how I do that in that course. And my most recent digital product is the Squarespace Designers Starter Template. And that has really done well. I think people are enjoying using it. And that's really fun to hear how it's helping people save time, kicking off new projects. So that is the third bucket, digital products. So kind of three different things. I didn't start them all at once. So I started with the client work because that's a for sure thing. You do the work, you get paid. And kind of naturally from that came blogging and the affiliate marketing. And then when I saw that there were things that maybe I couldn't cover in a blog because they needed so much more information and more hand holding and more videos and details, those kind of became the digital products.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so we're going to really dive into the digital products arm, but really quickly before we get there, let's talk about the affiliate marketing piece
Yeah.
really quickly. Actually, let me back up even more because there's something
Yeah.
else. It's really, the client work is such a good place to start. And I know that in this day and age, and like there's Etsy and all these things, and everybody's like, I want to get all these digital product streams
Yeah.
going. And it's like, if you need cash flow, which I mean, who doesn't? But if you're starting a business, cash flow is probably a priority. And if you need cash flow, like those one-on-one clients, that service-based work, I mean, that's the quickest route to there. You get a client, you get cash flow, even if it's low in the beginning. And to your point earlier too, it was interesting that like you started out with this niche of nonprofits, and then it gradually kind of expanded and changed into other things. And that's something else to keep in mind too. Your niche may change. It will.
Absolutely. When you're starting out, it's, you're looking for whoever will hire you. And so, yeah, I still have some sites that were live when I started on Squarespace. One is, I think I charged $750 for it. It was one of my first ones on Squarespace. I was just kind of testing the waters. It's for a local psychologist. And you would look at that and go, that is the Bedford template. I didn't really do anything, but it works for him. He's still running with it. So it's so funny. So you do have to start somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. And then I think the next logical place to start is the affiliate marketing stuff. Affiliate it's so easy to get into it because like you said, you're right at the gate. There are going to be things you're going to be using. You're going to have affiliate links for those. Well, I have a two-part question for that. So my question is would you move into that next as the logical step? And then it's probably not going to be super profitable right away because, you've got a small audience. What kind of audience do you need to get to for affiliate marketing to really start to make a difference in your bottom line?
That is a great question. So I think that I remember when I made my first affiliate marketing sale and I think I got like $3. And then I'm like, well, now I have to wait until I have 50 and they'll actually do a payout. So, we all start with zero audience as well. And for me, it really took about 9 months of blogging before I had any traction and was making money with affiliate marketing. And for me, after 9 months, I was making about $1,500 a month in affiliate marketing from my blog. And I make that or more today. And it's and I'm also doing affiliate marketing through my email list now, which don't do what I did. Start your email list early. I had my blog up and running forever before I added a lead magnet and an email list. And I'm like, how much did I miss out on because I just didn't do that step? So I would recommend if you are creating content, get a newsletter going, get people on your email list, start collecting those email addresses. So it took a while, and I don't have an answer for number of people because for me it was a time-based thing and I didn't have a list yet, right? So it was just people coming to my blog, but it was about 9 months of blogging every couple of weeks. And
Do
until
you,
then, sorry, I was
no,
just gonna say
no,
until then, I felt like I was shouting into the void. Like nobody came to my website. I just kept going. Um, and I'm feeling that with YouTube now. Maybe we'll talk about that later. But it's interesting that getting started is always tough. So um,
it
it takes a
is.
while.
Oh, let's talk about that right now really quickly because
Yeah.
I've been feeling this too because I've
Mhm,
just started my YouTube channel.
mhm.
My goal is 100 subscribers by the end of the year. I mean, and
What?
it's like I'm such a veteran. I've been doing this work for however many years.
Mhm,
I've built several successful businesses,
mhm,
but like anytime you start anything new, you're going to have that feeling of I'm a rookie. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm
mhm.
shouting into the void. Nobody's paying attention. It just you just have that, and you just got to keep going.
So here's some encouragement for you and anybody else who's listening. So I had a YouTube channel for years, but I didn't really do anything with it. I would occasionally post a video. So at the end of last year, I think I had like 400 subscribers, um, which was just accumulated over those years of the occasional video, which was really good, but not good enough to really do anything with. So I would encourage you, one, to dream bigger. Like you can get more than 100.
Well, I
And
just
if you're
started
if
2
you're
months ago.
watching, yeah, if you're watching, subscribe to Diane's channel. She's got great content. Um, so last year when I was part of the Google Labs experiment and I saw that they were rolling out zero-click search, and I'm like, "Oh no, there goes my blog traffic."
Mm,
And I started thinking about how can I mitigate that? And I thought, well, I'm going to have to start doing videos because the other big search engine that would work for me is YouTube. So by the end of last year, I had a plan to start in February doing one video at least every week this year. And right now I have over 2,000 subscribers. So there is a tipping point. There is a point at which you'll be like, oh, there are the people. But it took months, months. And if you look
awesome.
back, years, but I didn't do a lot during those years. But because you're starting now and you're doing this consistently, you're gonna have more than 100 in no time. But I'm still not monetized.
Mm,
And when will that happen? I don't know. I think probably end of Q1 next year if my analytics hold true. But again, for a long time, it's just shouting into the void. But the indicators that I look for, just if you're trying out something new, because I tried out Pinterest and I hated it and I never got a lead from Pinterest. I was on Instagram for years. I had like the most beautifully curated Instagram feed of like, here's a text post of a brand color, and here's a beautiful photo, and here's another text post with a different brand color. I spent a ridiculous amount of time on Instagram and got very, very few leads there. So this year I'm like, you know what? It's going to be for fun for me. I'll put up a 9 grid, call it done, do some stories when I find something helpful or funny. And that's all I'm doing there because it wasn't worth my effort. But blogging was definitely worth my effort. I think YouTube is going to be worth my effort because I am starting to get inquiries from people who say, I found you via YouTube.
yeah.
So again, that's an indicator to me to keep going.
Yes. Yes. I
Oh,
love
we've
that.
got some good comments. Yeah, Caitlin never got leads from Instagram. Same strategy as me now. Love it. Um, Floating Lotus Design. Are you primarily using YouTube to build your email list or attract clients? Yes. So I'm using it to build my email list. Um, for me, what I've done is I have a pre-launch checklist that is my lead magnet. It's been my lead magnet for years on Squarespace. And what I'm doing is I'm going through and I'm creating a video for every little point on that checklist. So they're short, but they're really actionable, and they're things people need to know before or after they launch a Squarespace website. And what I'm doing is I'm putting those videos out there every week. People are finding one, realizing there's a whole checklist, watching all the videos that I have so far, and signing up for my email to get the checklist. So it's kind of just keeping people in that ecosystem. We've got
That's such a great freebie too. I just want to give a quick shout out. That pre-launch checklist's just stellar. We'll put a link in the description, but it's
Thanks.
really.
Thank you. I think it's pretty helpful. Janelle, pure inspo, shouting into the void. Yes, absolutely. And Diane, she says one of her clients had her goal of 100 subs, and now she has over 1,000. Yeah, we both think you're going to hit 1,000. Like,
Yay.
no problem. Quickly.
Yay.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm excited. Like we talked about, I'm like, for many of the same reasons, I'm like, this is going to be my main thing for next year. You know, this and my email list, because of course I know mine as well. Please learn from us. Do not do that. Start your email list now, even if you don't think you have anything to share, just start doing it.
Just start collecting the emails. You don't have to send them anything other than like every couple months, just like so they don't forget who you are. There are some really sweet comments about digital products too. I downloaded your client process checklist and it is gold. Allison, thank you so much. Christine, big upvote for the starter template. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, that's awesome. Love that. Okay, now the topic everyone's been waiting for, products. Yeah. Let's talk about products. Let's talk about the strategy for them. Like, how have you built? Because you are building like an army of like resources. It's amazing some of the stuff you have.
Thank you.
So talk a little bit about your thought process behind it as you've built them and what you're trying to create.
Yeah. So for me, initially, I was trying to answer questions that I would get a lot. So with the Make Money with Your Blog course, for example, which needs updating, so it's like fairly inexpensive relatively right now. So if you grab it, I'm sorry, it needs updating, but you're getting a good deal. That was because I had a lot of clients who were really interested in blogging. They had heard me talk about how I was doing affiliate marketing and the income it was bringing in. And they wanted me to sit and talk with them for like 3 hours about how to start a blog and how to do affiliate marketing and how to position themselves as an expert, how to get clients. And I can't do that for every person. And so after a few of those, I'm like, I need to make a course on this. So that to me, it's like when I get the same question over and over or the same request over and over, once I hear it a few times, it's like, yeah, like by the third or fourth time, I'm like, this is a sign. I need to create this. So that's kind of how almost every product starts, is because someone has asked me about it in some way or asked for that particular product. For the starter template, it was actually people asked for that exactly. So in 2023, I did a talk at Squarespace Circle Day. It was a little workshop virtual, and I talked about client offboarding. And in that video, I talk about a couple of the things that I do on these pages on the back end of the website. And maybe 5 or 6 people emailed me right after and said, can you build this? I will buy it. And so I waited a year until the next Circle Day. So before Circle Day, I'm like, oh, right, I need a digital product because I'm going to be on stage and I need some income from this to pay for my Squarespace hotels because they were crazy expensive this year. So I had a goal of how many of the starter templates I needed to sell to pay for my hotels.
I love that. I love that it was paying for your stay at Circle Day, where you were speaking of like, okay, I got to make this work.
Yes.
It's so good. And that product is amazing. It's so good. That's another thing that I just think is so helpful for web designers, because you really spell out all the things that a site should have and how it should work. And you show you're really good at all of your like freebies and products. You're really good at showing and demonstrating like how you streamline things to make it easier on you.
Yeah, that's something that I love is I love a good checklist and I love efficiency. So if that's you, then you'll probably find something you enjoy in my shop. But the starter template in particular was really interesting for me because I have a complete walkthrough. So if you don't want to buy it, you can build it yourself. I show you everything you can do. And I've had since August over 150 people actually purchase it because they saw like all the things that go into it. And it's like, I should just buy this instead of building it myself. And I
Right.
hope that people who don't have the budget are building it themselves because they have the info. But I actually thought if I'm giving this away in terms of like showing people exactly what's there, I don't think I'll sell that many, but what I didn't realize is like it's such a time saver. People are willing to invest in it. And so
Yeah.
I was able to cover my hotel. By the time I left Circle Day, I'd met that goal. And I did a flash sale after or the Black Friday sale, and it's been really good. So I feel like it's a good product and people are finding it useful. And so that is my goal for the products to get feedback and feel like these are great. There's some that I try out a product and it's not great. So I had one for a while that was a Squarespace campaigns course, and it was great when I initially rolled it out, and then campaigns changed so much that just wasn't serving anybody anymore. And so I took that off. Make money with your blog. The blog structure has changed a little bit, and I talk about that. It's just like it looks different now, but it still works the same. So all the principles and how it works is the same. So it's fine. So it's still there. But I think you do have to be aware of, as things change, you either need to kind of put things in the vault or brush them off, dust them off, update them. And that's what I've tried to do.
Awesome. Awesome. I think, yeah, that's really good advice too. And also pointing out that just because maybe something is a little outdated, it doesn't mean it's not worth anything. I
Yeah.
love that you're like, okay, so the whole blogging platform doesn't work the way it did, but
Yeah.
I'm not going to give it away or make it toast. It's just,
Yeah.
but I am going to discount to acknowledge that. But the
Yeah.
principles are all still there. You'll still all
Hmm.
get all the goodies. So yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so on that note, what you were talking about with, because you do for the starter template,
Hmm.
you do this very long video where you walk through like every single piece of it and you get
Yeah.
to see it. And I was surprised by that too. So talk
Hmm.
a little bit, because I think a lot of people are concerned when they're creating digital products of like giving away the farm. And
Hmm.
so what would you say in terms of like, where's the line
Hmm.
between holding back enough or giving away
Hmm.
too much? Or is
Yeah.
there might not
It I think, that's a great question, and I'm not sure where the line is. I think the starter template is kind of a special case because it's all about creating systems to save you time. And then you realize, oh, I could save even more time if I were to just buy this. So
right.
it might be a special case in that, it's kind of it's a little meta in that it is what it is. So for other things, I think that I think the beauty to a course is that all the information is in one place. So you might have, actually, here's a great example. Back when I was charging for my image optimization course, it was $17. So, like, I don't want you to think it was very expensive. It was $17. And it was kind of my proof of concept for digital courses, but it was text-based course. And overall, I would say 98% of the people that bought it left me a great review, said it was wonderful, super helpful. And then one guy wrote in and he said, I could have found all of this if I had Googled it and read all the Squarespace help articles. And I'm like, but do you want to? Like, would it be worth $17 for you to just have it all right here in words that you understand?
Right.
So, I feel like it's different for everybody. But that guy, I'll never forget that guy. I'm like, yeah, you could Google everything.
Everything.
And yeah, you could find it. And if you want to wade through, like Christine, who's on this call, she has an amazing resource for e-commerce on Squarespace. And I mean, it's so good. I don't know that all of it is in the Squarespace documents, but I've tried to read those Squarespace documents and they don't make any sense to me. And when I got Christine's product, it's like, oh, it's all logical. It makes sense. Here are examples. Like, I get it, and I would happily pay for that rather than spending hours trying to decipher like things that were written by someone who has maybe never even used the product.
Yeah, absolutely. I think
Yeah.
I think people miss that a lot, and
Mhm.
I want to tie that back to like
Mhm.
building your list and your audience,
Yeah.
and because I think this is a really important part of building your brand too, is that when you establish yourself as someone who's good at explaining or explaining in a
Mhm.
way that you can understand, when you establish that authority,
Mhm.
people are happy to buy from you. It's like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, you're going to see, I don't have to look for something, because it's
Mhm.
not just finding the information.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
finding the information from somebody where you trust the source. There's
Yes.
a lot
Yeah.
of work involved in that. So
Yeah.
if you're
Yeah.
establishing it right out the gate, people
Mhm.
and building that audience over time, people are going to totally buy from you.
And I think that's a really good point you make about establishing that trust with your audience. So, on for Black Friday, I do like a curated blog post of Black Friday deals, but they're only things that I've bought and that I use. And I send it out every year. And this year I got a lot of really lovely emails back saying, I look forward to this because I know, like, I trust you. And I know, like, these are things that you've bought and you've invested in, instead of like 100 things you need as a Squarespace web designer. These are like 7 things that Christy has bought and thinks are worthwhile. So, I think it is worthwhile to really curate what you're sharing, and to be really transparent about, like, it's something that has worked for me, and not just like, here are 10,000 things that you might like for your business, because those listicle blog posts do well and the YouTube videos, but do they serve you well in the long term? I'm not sure they do.
I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Okay, so let me ask you another couple questions.
Mhm.
So we've got thinking
Mhm.
about the questions that you get asked all the time, because that's a
Yeah.
good source of ideas for products.
Mhm.
And then
Mhm.
thinking about who your client is and what they need in terms of what you want to share. I think it's such
Mhm.
a good point to think about, like, if they're really wanting to save time and that's the
Mhm.
product you're creating, it may be
Yeah.
okay to share more because they'll
Yeah.
just invest in the done for
Mhm.
you solution that you have
Yeah.
available. If you're sharing something like, say, scripts to say to a client, for example,
Mhm.
maybe that's something where you need to share a little bit less and talk more about the benefits, that kind of
Yeah.
thing. But so those are really great points. Is there any other strategy involved in creating a suite of digital products?
Yes, and this is something that I have not done a great job on, but I am working toward. So, I think when you create a suite of digital products, one thing to consider is that once someone purchases one and has a good experience, you want to create other things that they could come back and purchase as well. So, you want to kind of think of it holistically. And the reason I've not done a good job of this is, initially when I started building my digital product shop, I was building it for DIYers. And what I've realized is that more of my audience is actually Squarespace designers, or people who are considering becoming Squarespace designers, than DIYers. And so you'll see that my products have shifted over time to focus more on designers. I still have some for the DIYers that I can point people to, but going forward, I'm thinking about how all of those products work together, because once someone purchases something from you, they have a good experience, they're a lot more likely when you have a sale to go, oh, yeah, I'm going to grab that from her too. The first thing was really good. So, thinking about how they all might work together in harmony.
I love that. Yeah, taking a step back and
Hmm.
looking at what your niche needs and sort of like a 360 view. Well, if they need this, they're going to need this. And if they need this, then they're going
Yes.
to need that, to
Yeah.
encourage those, like you said. And then you can bundle things and have
Right.
sales and you can do all kinds of stuff. So, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
very, very, very great advice. Okay, so yeah, we've got some more good comments. Caitlin saying, yes, she's found that too. Yes, I answer a lot of questions in the social media stratosphere. And Floating Lotus is saying, I answer a lot on my YouTube channel. Yeah,
Me
for sure.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any thoughts on that, on answering support questions and stuff? Do you
Mhm.
just take the time to answer and give people all the good
If it's
information, build your
I mean,
brand?
if it's something I know, then sure, I'll just pop in the resource that I have on hand, or, what I think. If it's something that I have to go and research, no. I mean, they would need to pay me for that. But no, I do get a lot of questions, some of which are things that, it's a pretty easy answer if you've been doing Squarespace for a while. And so it's like somebody, I think, had a question about like this weird error they were getting. And I'm like, oh, that's the 404 page and you can create your own, or you have a question about URL redirects because that's not something we're born knowing. So, those are like easy to answer questions, but every now and then it'll be like, my site is doing this weird thing. And I'm like, yeah, that's weird. You need to talk to support.
Right. Yeah, that's weird. I don't know that. Right. Okay, and so we have a few more comments. Yeah, the fact that we're Squarespace designers, developers can't easily parse their support docs. I mean, it's true, right?
Yeah.
It's just because information is available doesn't mean
Mhm.
people are going to want to consume it or
Mhm.
will even be easily able to consume it. So
Right.
taking information that exists somewhere else, and it all exists somewhere else, but
Mhm.
taking information that exists somewhere else and repackaging it and repurposing it in a
Mhm.
way that is relevant to your audience, I mean,
Mhm.
that's the gold. A digital
Christine
doodle.
says, I read the Squarespace support doc, so you don't have to. I love that.
Perfect. Yes, right. Actually, absolutely.
Yeah.
Um,
And we've got is it Amna? I don't have my glasses on, so I'm squinting. I'm a digital doodle artist. I love that. That sounds so cool.
that's amazing. I love that. Awesome, guys. So much fun. Okay,
I
so
said YouTube it. Yeah. Some really good comments. Thank you guys.
yeah. Okay, so one more question on so we've kind of covered the gamut. I feel like
Mhm.
we've got a good view of like what creates a successful web design business.
Mhm.
Let's talk a little bit about services and
Mhm.
productizing your services so
Mhm.
that that makes people's lives easier to yours and your clients. What does that look
Yeah.
like in your business?
Yeah. So I have 4 different services right now, and so that changes over time, right? So I have my Squarespace screen share for an hour, and that's kind of my foot in the door for a lot of clients. Like they're not willing to spend thousands of dollars on a new website or on a VIP day, but they will spend a couple hundred to get some targeted help on a specific issue. But once they've worked with you, they're really much more likely to come back and say, well, I saw how fast that was for you and easy for you, and it would have taken me 2 months and a lot of headaches, and I might have thrown my computer out the window, so I'm just gonna hire you to do this. So it's a really nice kind of taster for people. Now, that's not productized in any way other than, like, it all happens on Acuity, and I just show up for the call and answer the questions they have. So, but that looks different for every person. So I think the productized part of that is, the sales page is there. They can book without talking to me. They get all the reminders and, I have an AI tool that records the call for them. So that's one. The other is my designer for a
Which
day.
AI tool do you use to
I
record?
use Fathom Video right now, but I'm playing around with some others. So we'll
Yeah,
see.
okay. All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. The next service, like price point ladder wise, is my VIP day, which I call designer for a day. And that is also not really productized because it's very specific for the person, but it's at a price point that, like, if I spend 5 or 6 hours a day on it, I feel very well paid for my time and they have a great experience. And a lot of those people have come back in a few years and gone with custom build for me as well. So again, it's just that higher tier to develop relationships and help people with something that they need that's more than you could do in an hour. The next service is very productized. So that is my 2-day website and it's a template build out. So people will choose one of my Squarespace templates that I've created. And for example, if they choose my Sway template for service providers, I set them up in Copyscape and they get a visual of each section of each page. And then I ask them, what text do you want here? Here's what it should be about. What image do you want here? Here's kind of what you're looking for. They fill all of that out. They fill out all of the back end stuff like your domain and your privacy policy, all of that stuff. And they do all that without me. They hand it off to me. I build it in 2 days. We have a 1.5 hour walkthrough call and they're done. So that is highly productized. And that is really rewarding because it is not that much time for me, but I do feel amply rewarded for my experience in creating these systems and the templates. So it's really nice. And it's much lower price point for them than a custom build would be. So they're getting a great website that's strategic, that is branded for their business, but they don't have to pay for a custom build.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
yeah. And then we talked a little bit about the custom builds before, but for me, like I said, the timeline changes with those, but my process is actually the same throughout them all. And I have somebody mentioned my client process checklist. That's the one that I use, that I go through. And I'm actually working on a course that's going to launch in February called the Web Designers Playbook, where you're going to get a complete behind the scenes on exactly how I run my custom projects. So you'll get swipe files and timelines and everything in Asana, or you can drop it into whatever system you use, and it's all there for you.
I'm so excited about the course. Talk a little bit
You.
more about that, because I think it's going to be, I think it's just going to be a huge resource for web designers.
For me, it's really everything I wish I had known before I started doing custom builds. So it's like, how do you position yourself? What do you do on a discovery call? What questions do you need to ask on the initial questionnaire? Um, Everything like that, even to the details of like, who pays for hosting? When do I add the client to the website? How do they preview the website? Everything from that very first touch point to client offboarding. So it's going to be, I think I've got about 10 modules, and I'm really excited about it. It's not built yet. I'm still working on it, but I do have a waitlist page that is not well designed at all, because it's just tossed up there as I'm working on the course. But it's called the Web Designers Playbook, and we can drop a link in the description if you want to get on the waitlist for that.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah, we'll have that in there. Yeah, I think it's going to be so amazing, because that's like the big, I mean, that's what we took years learning.
Yes. Yeah.
Years.
Mhm.
What do I say to the client? How do I get from them what I need to do my
Right.
job? And then
Mhm.
how do I set them up for success when I offboard? Like, there's this whole, just the
Yeah.
minutia of the words to say.
Mhm.
It's
How do I keep this project on track? How do we not end up with 10 scope changes? Because when I was starting out, I mean, there was this architect that I work with on her website years ago. I'm sure she's not watching this. But I built a website for her. This was actually on WordPress. It was before I was doing Squarespace. And she wanted to change the color blue on the website. I think we changed it 100 times, and we had to be on a call for each one of those changes because I didn't have any boundaries. And eventually it's like her sister's cat was involved in the decision making. It was just ridiculous. So I have learned over time how to create healthy boundaries for myself and the clients. And I think we all learn from each other as designers too. Like, these things come up in conversations. But if you're new to the web designer world, who do you ask? And so I'm just trying to put all of those resources in one place that, it's everything that I wish I had had starting out.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, I think that's so true, because it like you're saying, who do you ask? Like,
Yeah.
it's not a part of the common discourse. Not many
Mhm.
people are sharing this kind of stuff. I
Yeah.
talked to a woman recently who said she was moving toward template sales. She was building a template shop because she couldn't stand working with clients anymore. And
Yeah.
I was just curious, and I was like, well, so what was what was bad or what was hard about it? Like, one of the first things she said was, well, when they would text me.
Oh, nobody has my phone number. Nope. Nope. Mm-mm.
Like,
Yeah.
that's the first
Mhm.
red
Yeah.
flag.
Yeah.
Well, how do you know? Like, how
Yeah.
do you communicate with people? You
Yeah.
text people, so you give them
Mhm.
your number. Like, you just, those systems and
Yeah.
processes, don't know in the beginning that those are
Yeah.
the things that will contribute to
Well,
your insanity.
and still learning. So I have a Google Voice number that I use for my business, but during the Designer for a Day, the VIP day, I actually do text people back and forth. And for a while, like 6 months later, I get a text from a number I don't recognize, and they're like, "Can you help me with something real quick?" And so after that, I'm like, now at the end of the day, I have this really nice pasted response. It's like, "Just so you know, this number's not monitored. If you need to get in touch with me later, here's my email address." So, I mean, we're all learning all the time, right? That's something that I should have thought of, but I didn't until, there was a boundary crossed, and I'm like, "Oh, I need to wrangle this."
Right, for sure.
Mhm.
Yes, someone said, I read once, someone said that being a web designer means changing your contract every single time you have a client,
Yes,
because every client violates a boundary in another way, and you
I
just throw
love
that
that.
clause in the
Yeah,
contract, which
yeah,
feels true. But of course, what I found is that the contract can't protect you from everything. There are some things that you have to
yeah.
have in place, and just in a systems way, in a
Mhm.
communications way. And I think that's what your course is going to just
Thank
be
you.
so great at sharing with people.
Thank
So.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll have a link to that in the description, a link
thank
to
you.
her waitlist page, or if she's already offering it, it'll be for the actual page for the course. So awesome. Uh, Floating Lotus is saying Boxer is the best for VIP days. I rely on Boxer and WhatsApp a
That's
lot.
so funny. I don't like it for VIP days because
Really
people will just, and maybe it's the type of clients that I work with, because if they have Voxer and they're talking, a lot of them, I think, verbalize to rationalize. And so, like, I'm getting a lot of thought process happening. And I'm like, I don't need all of that. I need this much. And so for me, I think the texting works better. That's really interesting.
interesting. Yeah, that's funny. I like the Boxer and the WhatsApp because I can speed it up. And so
Mhm.
if there's a
Yes.
lot of this going, I
Yes.
go like, tap,
Yeah.
tap, tap, like 3 times speed, and I get to the nugget
That
that
is
I
key.
need.
Yes.
But yeah, that's interesting. Um, awesome. Awesome. We're just reading the comments really
Mhm.
quickly. Them
Yeah.
boundaries are gold. You said it. That's
Yes.
it.
Yes.
All right, awesome. This was lovely. Okay, let me ask you one last
Mhm.
question,
Yeah.
and then we'll wrap up. But one last question. Tell people where they can
Mhm.
find you.
Oh, yeah, it's christyprice.com, and all my digital products are at learn.christyprice.com,
Oh,
and oh, uh-huh.
I have two questions for you.
Yeah,
So keep
yeah, yeah.
going. So where else can people find you? So
Oh,
anything
and
else you want to say?
on YouTube at Christy Price and Instagram, Christy Price Web Design.
Awesome, awesome. And we will have links to all of those in the description. My last question, this is
Yeah.
actually a substantive question.
Mhm.
You are recently, very recently, you just moved everything to Podia. I'm
I did.
fascinated. Tell me about
Mhm.
that.
Yeah, and actually Christine, who is in the comments here, was the impetus for that because I saw her doing it. I'm like, that looks delightful. So there were two things that kind of made me move. Otherwise, I inertia is a big thing for me. Like it's a lot to change platforms. So my courses were initially on Teachable, which is great for a lot of reasons, but the price was going up and their customer support was terrible. And the interface, like I never got the hang of it. Like I couldn't find things. It was just so frustrating for me to use. Now, there were some good things like they handle all sales tax. So right now I have to figure out how to charge sales tax for people in the EU and do VAT stuff. So that's a learning for me, but it's worth it because the Podia interface is so delightful. So that alone, the teachable stuff alone may not have been enough, but then I was also using ConvertKit and I was struggling with a few things there. And then they did their rebranding to Kit. And I heard that they spent $500,000 on the domain name kit.com. And I'm like, I can't give you any more money. You're not using it wisely. Like you could have just made it look like this and still called it ConvertKit. It would have been great. So that was like those two things in tandem were like, okay, I need to find something else for email marketing and for digital products. And Podia actually does those both really nicely together. And it's been a great experience so far. I mean, there have been hiccups, sure, when you're any new platform, but overall, really happy.
Outstanding. And
Mhm.
there, just say a little tiny, I love that you said that about ConvertKit. You're just so my person. You're just my
Yeah.
kind of people. Because I'm like, really, this whole rebrand, and you took the most important part of your name
Convert
out of it?
on. Yeah, I know, right?
Well,
Crazy.
who was on that meeting? The things I don't understand. So
Well,
anyway,
this was after a failed rebrand, remember? Like they tried to rebrand it once before, and
yeah.
I think they didn't do research into what the word meant. So it was just like, I need to leave this. I don't have brain space for this.
Okay. And so then you moved your email marketing also to Podia, which is
Mhm.
really interesting to me. And you like the way it works, and it's like makes sense and all those things.
Yeah, it's not as feature rich as ConvertKit. So there are things that I can't do in Podia, but I wasn't doing them in ConvertKit anyway.
Okay. All
And
right.
the
Good.
interface is so much easier. It's just so simple.
Okay, fantastic. All right. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for taking an
Yeah,
extra couple minutes for that. I wanted to
of
dive into
course.
that because I'm like, that's fascinating. So, okay, so last substantive question.
Mhm.
Uh, what's your biggest piece of advice to someone who's starting out their web design business, like who's just starting? What's your biggest piece of
Yeah.
advice?
My biggest piece of advice is for the first few months, we talked about this. Even we talked about it with content creation, but it's honestly with starting a business, you feel like you're shouting into the void and it's so easy to just quit because you don't have any traction. And my biggest piece of advice would be just keep swimming like Dory in Finding Nemo. Like just keep swimming and give yourself enough time to see if it's actually going to work. And I think most of us we live in a society where we expect things to happen instantly, and businesses don't work like that. It's going to take a lot of time and it's going to be a slow growth for a lot of people. And I think just hang in there.
Awesome. Super smart. Very encouraging and very
Yeah.
wise too. Thank you so much, Christy. Thank you so
It's
much for
nice.
being here with me today. This was awesome.
You asked such interesting questions, and I learned a lot from you too. This is fun, and I feel like we're two peas in a pod with the WordPress and Squarespace and ConvertKit stuff. Yeah.
Right. So many things. Absolutely. So I'm definitely going to have you back on in 2025. So everybody keep an eye out for that because we, like you said, we have so many
Thank
fun things
you.
to talk about.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Thanks so much for everybody who joined us live. Great chat. Appreciate you being here.
Yes, this was so great, everybody. Thank you all so much for being here. Links to Christy's services and courses are going to be in the show notes, which you'll find at my website, swayrisecreative.com, and they're also going to be in the description below. If you want to support me, you can check out my site at swayrisecreative.com. I have tons of resources for designers and small businesses there. And next week, I will be talking to Squarespace web designer Caitlin Deacle about web design trends for 2025, what's hot, what's not. Do we even care? It's going to be really interesting. So thank you all so much for being here today.
Thank
This is
you.
great. And I'll see you next week. Bye, everyone. Oops. There we go.